for authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is Barbara Berger. We're going to be talking about her recent book, Are You Happy Now? And without any real further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her in here. So, Barbara, how you doing today?
I'm pretty happy now. What about you? Are you happy now?
I'm pretty happy now for the moment.
Okay. Well, that's a good start, right? Well, thank you for inviting me to your show, Royce.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. It's your first time here, so you're a little unfamiliar with Talk Now Radio. This show's been on the air for about 7 years now, so you're not the first to my show.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're a very experienced radio host, so I feel like I'm in good hands.
All right. So, tell me something. What got you interested in writing this particular topic or subject material?
Well, I think that's a really good place to start, because before we talk about the book, I think it's really important for your listeners, or our listeners, to know a little bit about why the book was written or where I was coming from and all of that.
Right, and while you're at it, a little something about yourself that I meant to add at the front of that and I didn't.
That's okay. Well, actually, while we're at it, I think I'll just tell our listeners that to find out more about me and all my work and my books, we have a website, and it's beamteam.com, BEAMTEAM.com, and you can go there and you can see all the details about, the books and the work, and there's a lot of free stuff on the website. But anyway, I've been writing a lot of books. I've actually written 15 self-empowerment books, and I've been studying consciousness and the way the mind works and trying to figure out, the way out of suffering. And I live here in Scandinavia. I was born in the United States, but I live in Scandinavia, and I've been a teacher here for a long, long time, for many, many years. And the book, Are You Happy Now? 10 Ways to Live a Happy Life, it actually came about, I wasn't planning on writing this book, but it was one afternoon right after I had my 60th birthday, and I thought, I was laying on my sofa, and I was thinking, oh, my God, Barbara, you're really old now. And what have you learned from this long and eventful life that you've lived? And, all these books that you've written, and you've been teaching all these people. And I also work as a therapist. And so all this stuff that I've been doing for many, many years, I was laying there on my sofa thinking, what have I learned from all of this? And then I asked myself the question, what do I need to remember to live the rest of my life a little bit more happily than I have done the previous 60 years? And then I thought, that was a really good question. And then I took out a piece of paper and I started making a list for myself, what I needed to do, what I needed to remember to live a happy life. And then I wrote down these 10 points. And they are actually the 10 points that became this book. And the 10 points are, I think I'll just read them to our listeners so they know what we're talking about. These are the 10 points that I wrote down for myself, the things that I needed to remember. Number 1, accept what is. Number 2, want what you have. Number 3, be honest with yourself. Number 4, investigate your stories. Number 5, mind your own business. Number 6, follow your passion and accept the consequences. Number 7, do the right thing and accept the consequences. Number 8, deal with what is in front of you and forget the rest. Number 9, know what is what. And number 10, learn to see beyond impermanence. And then after I wrote this list, I thought to myself, well, Barbara, if you're going to remember this, maybe you better explain to yourself, try to write down why you think each one of these points is so important. So then I started scribbling away on my little piece of my notebook there, that why was the first one so important and why was the second one so important? And then I was writing. And then a few days later, I had lunch with my publisher here in Scandinavia, and I sort of jokingly told her about this list that I had made. And then she thought, oh, it's really a great idea for a book, because she really liked the 10 points, and she thought, you know, I have a lot of followers already in Scandinavia, and that people would be interested in these 10 ways. So that's actually the background of this book. The original title was A Reminder to Myself, but my publisher didn't think that was a very sexy title. So
well, I can see why.
And so it changed it to Are You Happy Now? 10 Ways to Live a Happy Life. So it's really an interesting book, because it's very, very popular. It was on the bestseller list here, and now it's actually been published in 18 different languages. So, and people really, really like this book. So apparently the 10 ways that I sort of jotted down for me, other people can relate to and use and find helpful. So I'm really thrilled about that. So that's kind of the background to this little book.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. What I was going to point out, is your microphone close to your speakers?
My microphone, I don't have a microphone.
That's right, it's built into the monitor.
Yeah.
I'm picking up an echo.
Okay, I didn't make any changes since we tested it last.
Huh.
Is it better
It may be a Skype issue.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, let me call you on the phone real quick, and then we'll disconnect this.
Okay.
Okay, hang on at this.
Hello?
Okay, now I don't hear the echo. Must have been some kind of a Skype issue. I mean, my Skype, it does shows fine, and it does it Skype to phone, Skype to Skype, on a regular basis with no trouble. But every now and then, you'll pick up an echo. I guess it has to do with the weather or solar flares, or who knows what it is. You know what I'm saying?
I know. So, and maybe it's also because I am sitting with my laptop. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it.
I couldn't begin to tell you, but we got rid of the echo. That's the important thing.
That's good.
I also want to remind everybody, if y'all would like to call in, the number is 832-632-7904. And the guest today, like I said, is Barbara Berger. And like she said, her site's www.beamteam.com. And if y'all scroll down below the chat room, you'll see her description, her picture, her link right under the picture, everything about her in the book. And underneath that, you'll see a link to Amazon to her book there if y'all are interested in getting it. And this information will be going in the archive, I would say most likely after the show today or tomorrow. So, I was wondering about you saying those 10 little points like you did. Don't you feel like you kind of give away the whole candy store by doing that?
I don't think so, because they're really, really very deep and profound points that really. The feedback that I get from readers, and I get a lot of feedback that people actually tell me that these points are so profound that, in fact, one radio show host that I was on, a woman in California, she said that she loved the book so much that she actually made up her mind to take just one of the 10 points each week and spend a whole week just mulling over it, focusing on it, trying to put it into practice in her life. And she said it made major changes in her life. So, I mean, all of these kind of things, you know, like you can say, okay, that makes sense, but if you go a bit deeper, you know, like, why does it make sense, and what does that mean actually in relationship to my life? So that's actually the deeper part of this whole exercise or this whole book, the way it's built up. And actually, I actually have a worksheet at the back of the book where I help people or guide people who they really want to try to put it into practice in their life. I have some exercises about, you know, questions you can ask yourself, pointers, things you can look at to see, you know, if this is a troublesome area for you, or you know, if this is really working well for you.
Well, one of the things I was noticing about those 10 points as you were going over them is that all of these dealt with internal issues, not
exactly.
external issues.
very, very good insight. Very, very good insight. And that would really lead me to the next thing that I'd really like to say about not just this book, but all the books that I've written and all the work that I do is based on understanding the way the mind works. Because as far as I can see, that is the key to living a happy life. And the thing that I've really discovered, and that is also the basic premise of this book, is that, as you say, our experience of life is an internal, subjective interpretation. In other words, as far as I can see, there is a difference between what is going on, you could say reality, the things that are happening in the external world around us, and our thoughts about what's going on, our interpretations of what's going on. And each human being, every single one of us, we experience our interpretation of events. We don't really experience things directly, you could say. And that's sort of the basic, you could say, consciousness or philosophical premise of this book, that everything that we are experiencing is based on our interpretation, our story, the way we think things are going. So in other words, the same exact event, one person thinks, oh, this is great, and then they're happy. And the next person thinks, oh, this is terrible, and they're unhappy. So if we understand this mechanism of mind, how it works and how it's shaping our experience, we also have the key to changing our experience if we want to. So that's really the fundamental premise of Are You Happy Now? And the other fundamental premise of the book is that you could say it's not really, if we're not happy, it's not really life that makes us unhappy. It's our own unrealistic expectations to life that make us unhappy. There's a big difference there. In other words, life is, events are, everything is just what it is. But we have our stories about how things should be. And in that way, we really tend to sabotage our own happiness. Anyway,
I would tend to agree with you.
That's what I found out after a long run.
I really would. I teach my kids all the time that if you're going to be happy in life, you're going to have to be happy in spite of the outside world. Your happiness is going to have to come from within, because let's face it, good things happen on and off, bad things happen on and off. You ain't going to stay happy that way. If you depend on anything outside making you happy. I mean, that's not to say that outside things can't make you happy or can't brighten your day.
Exactly.
But it's not what you hinge your happiness on.
Exactly. I really like the way you said that, Royce. It's a really, really fine, very, very important point you just made. I mean, of course, outside things can make us happy. But if our happiness depends, it's a really, really important thing to understand.
Because so many of us, if I just have that job, I'll be happy until they actually get it. If I just marry this woman, I'll be happy.
Right.
Oh, my God, how would I marry this woman? She nags all day. But really, that's what humans do. We all do it.
Well, and that's also actually another one of the points in the book is also this about, that because we have these idea that other things outside of us will make us happy, that we tend to, we're not really present, or we tend not to notice, the glory of the life we already have. We tend not to notice the abundance, the richness, the present moment, everything that we have, the blessings that we have, because we're so busy thinking, as you just said, if only I had that job, or if only I had that partner, if only I had a designer kitchen, if only I weighed, 10 pounds less. We have all these things that we think, if I get that, then I'll be happy now.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Everything I'm hearing you describe says to me, the grass is always greener on the other side, never what you have now.
Yeah.
And we're taught this as kids, yet we grow up and we don't implement it. And you wonder, I can't help but ask, why don't we implement it if we learn it in first grade?
Well, the thing is, we might learn that, but we learn an awful lot of other stuff. I mean, I really believe, and I work as a therapist, and I talk to people every single day, and I've been teaching this stuff for years and years and years, that each one of us are born into this world with we're pure innocence. I mean, we're open, we're little kids, and then we're born into a certain family, into a certain culture, into a certain religion, and we learn all kinds of stuff. We're programmed with beliefs about, you should do this and you should do that, and you need this and you need that. So somehow or other, we learn a lot. We get a lot of messages that tell us that, that we're not God's precious children just as we are, but that we need to be, achievers and performers, and we need to be so thin, and we need to be so beautiful, and we need to make so much money. And it's not that those things are not nice to have, but they are not what our inherent worth is really about. So we get programmed, unfortunately, with things that do not serve us well, I would say. And usually people who are into this more spiritual stuff or into more consciousness work or who go to therapy, they're all trying to unlearn. We're all trying to unlearn the things that we learned, that we're taught, that don't serve us, that are somehow sabotaging the very happiness that we seek, which is what we are to begin with.
Well, I think you hit a key point on that, Barbara. I mean, and I know this, not wanting to turn this here show into a church bashing session, and don't make that a mistake. However, in order to say what I'm going to say, you have to realistically state what's transpired, in other words. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of the problems is if you get a child that is related to, say, same-sex attraction from birth or early childhood, mm-hmm. and is brought up in a church that condemns this, then you're raising a child in an unhappy environment because this child cannot be himself or cannot be true with himself and still please you. Would that not be true?
Absolutely. Oh, I agree 100%. We have all these kinds of rules and regulations that are limiting I believe that each one of us is, has a direct link to Source, to God, the Creator, whatever you want to call it, and that we are all expressions of divinity, each in our own way. And to have these kind of, that there's only one way of expressing the glory, the wonder, the love. I mean, so it's very stressful to be taught that you're not okay unless you are in a certain way. That's really probably the most stressful thing that we can learn as children. And most of us have learned that one version or another of that.
Yeah, so basically you could be teaching a child that at the very core of your being, you're an evil person or a wicked person. Mm-hmm. And actually when you hear things like our righteousness is as filthy as rags, that doesn't do a lot for the self-esteem.
No.
So yeah, I can see where a lot of people that aren't happy today, they probably didn't have a lot of good self-esteem coming up as children. Mm-hmm. What kind of tidbits of wisdom would you have for somebody who, these same principles that you just mentioned earlier, do they apply to the person that was brought up without a good self-esteem?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If we go back to the 10 points in the book, especially point number 5, which I call is investigate your stories. This is really a whole chapter which is based on how do we question the belief systems that we have been brought up with, or how do we question just the beliefs that we personally have that are stressing us, that are making us unhappy. In other words, to be able to understand that there is this thing called life. Again, it goes back to the basic principle. There is this thing called reality. And then we have our thoughts about what's going on. It's very, very important to be able to see that they're two different things. Most of us are so identified with our thinking that we think that our thoughts are reality. But if you really slow down and take a look at what's going on, and you could take, for example, any event. You could take let me see if I can think of an example. Okay, say a divorce. A divorce is, what is the reality of a divorce? A divorce is two people who live together under the same roof. Now they have parted and they're going their separate ways. So that's the actual factual thing about what a divorce is. One person gets divorced and they have the story that, I'm losing the love of my life. I'll be alone for the rest of my life. I'll never be happy again. And the person who has that interpretation of what divorce means to them will be miserable, very depressed. Another person can be in the same situation, divorced, two people who once lived together, they go their separate ways, and they can be overjoyed. Finally I'm going to be free, and now I'm going to live my life the way I want. Now I'm not going to be stuck with this partner who's been, So, but in both situations, the basic fact of what was going on is two people who once lived under the same roof are going their separate ways. But what we experience is our interpretation of the event. In other words, what does this mean for me? So I would say, if we continue with the divorce example, I have a lot of women coming to me, or men also for that matter, a lot of people are getting divorced. And say the woman who comes in and she sits down in my chair and he tells me that now they're getting divorced, and she'll start crying, and then she'll say, I'll be alone for the rest of my life. I'll never find love again. And so that she's telling me her interpretation of what this event, she thinks this event means to her. And then I'll very kindly, very slowly, very gently go in and say, can you absolutely know that it's true, your interpretation? In other words, yes, you are getting divorced right now. Yes, you are no longer with this partner. Yes, it's a difficult time for you right now. But to say that you'll be alone for the rest of your life, you don't know if that's true. That you'll never find love again, you can't possibly know that that's true. You might go out of my door and bump into the next man in your life, right? So just to sort of to meet people who have an interpretation, I usually call it catastrophic thinking. In other words, something happens and they get lost in a story that is really very out of proportion to what actually is happening. And to do this exercise with anyone about any issue that's really troubling them, it usually brings an instantaneous sense of relief. In other words, it doesn't make the actual situation change in any way, but the way they relate to it changes and softens and brings more of a sense of, okay, it's that, but don't project it too far into the future,
Right.
So that's why, in answer to your question also, any kind of stories we've been given, any kind of information that makes us feel less than worthy, that makes us feel we can't manage our lives, that makes us feel deeply anxious or depressed, it's worth questioning these stories. So I have a whole chapter in this book dedicated to how you can actually do this.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I know I'm not a therapist, but yet, even as a regular everyday Joe, you get in conversations with friends, families, etc., coworkers, and they can start telling you their problems and how they're unhappy. Mm-hmm. And you might suggest to them that, well, maybe if you was to change your perception of this here issue, the first thing they want to do is start telling, well, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So you say you got a chapter that says, well, wait a minute, let me show you how you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, you can't change it directly by saying, oh, you shouldn't think that, because the person obviously does. But it's more to go in and actually, if you question it, if you use, often use a technique called the work of Byron Katie, which is 4 questions that you can ask people. And the first question that she uses is it true? And if you go back to the example I gave of the woman who says, I'll never find love again. If you ask her just gently, well, can you absolutely know that this is true, my dear? Immediately you'll see the look on the person's face when they actually consider the question is, oh yeah, I can see I can't actually know that that's true. So it's not that you actually tell the person that their thoughts are not, serving them well, but they find out themselves that they're generalizing, or they're assuming things which they have no knowledge of, and so people can find it out by themselves that, that's not, I really don't know that that's true. So it gives us sort of a sense of inner freedom.
So it's all an approach.
It's in the approach, yeah, and it's just this feeling that, again, if we start to understand that our experience of life is caused by our thinking and not by life itself, it's very, very, very helpful in dealing with any kind of problems we have. Actually, I'd like to tell the readers that if you go into our website, I have a free book that you can download called The Mental Laws. I believe that it's so liberating, it's so important to understand the mechanism of mind if we want to live happy lives, that I tried to summarize the way the mind works in what I call the 10 mental laws. And I believe that this information is so important that I'm giving it away for free on the website. So if you go into beamteam.com, BEAMTEAM.com, and if you go under the menu and click on the one that says Barbara Berger, on the drop-down menu there'll come the mental laws. And then click on that and you'll see that the book will come up and you can download it for free. It's a very short book where I really try to outline in a very concise, simple way the mechanism of mind, because if you understand this, it's really the key to freedom, I believe. So please go in and take advantage of this offer.
I don't think very many therapists are up for explaining how the mind works like you are.
Well, I'm not. I would say that I'm a consciousness seeker, worker, more than I am a therapist, but a therapist is my day job, so we put it like that.
Well, is any of your work you do or any things in your books, say, based on the ancient Eastern teachings?
The answer to that is absolutely yes, in the sense that, as far as I can see, all of my books and all of my work, I'm seeking the truth about the nature of reality, the nature of consciousness, the nature of mind, and all the great spiritual teachings, Buddhism, Hinduism, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of the Christ, I believe that there is a universal truth which is found in all of these great teachings, because they're all asking the same questions. What is life? And what am I? And what is the way out of suffering? So that's my great passion. So all of my books are actually attempts to really communicate and express the eternal verities, the universal truths in modern language, you could say.
So you must have studied the Eastern philosophies for quite a few years there yourself.
Absolutely, yes.
So what other kind of books do you have out there?
Well, the book of mine that's the most popular, it's called The Road to Power, Fast Food for the Soul. That book, I mean, all of these books you can see, go in on the website, you can see them all listed there. But that book has actually been a bestseller in so many countries. It's out in 30 languages. It's out in China and Japan and South Korea and Russia and, everywhere actually. And actually the latest, I'm really proud of it, the latest language that my books are coming in is Arabic. So I'm actually now becoming available in the Arab countries too, so I'm really proud of that. But The Road to Power is a really, really simple, good, very popular book that explains the way the mind works in very simple terms. And then a more advanced book, if you really want to have the summary of everything I've been teaching, there's a book out called The Awakening Human Being, A Guide to the Power of Mind. That book summarizes what I've been teaching for many, many years. So, but you can see all that on the website, and they're also available on Amazon, all these books.
Now, you run your website with a partner named Tim Ray.
Tim Ray is my son.
Your son?
My son, yes. And
My
he's
goodness.
He's written some really cool books too, my son Tim Ray. Yes.
Like mother, like daughter. I mean, like a mother, like son.
Like son, yes.
My
yes.
God, where did I just go?
Well, can't you see the curly hair?
Yeah, I can.
If you look at the picture, he has the same curls his mom has.
All right. Now, do y'all have any kind of workshops y'all run or anything like that?
Yes, but we have nothing in the States right now. So, but what we do have that could be of interest to people who are far away, since we have this wonderful technology now, anybody can get in touch with me who wants to talk to me. We do sessions by telephone or by Skype. So we have, I mean, in the old days, people had to come to the office and sit in the chair here, and it's not necessary anymore. It's really amazing what technology does for us now. So if there's anybody out there who'd like to get in touch with me, go into the website, send me an email, and tell me what time zone you live in, and we'll figure out a way to talk if I can be of service to you in any way.
Okay. Now, is there anything for your newsletter, or is that free?
The newsletter is also free. Just sign up. There's a place on the website where you can sign up for the newsletter, too.
Okay. Now, do you have any kind of forums or groups or networks or anything like that?
No.
All right. And what do you have coming down the pike in the near future?
Well, as I said, there's all these different books that we're out talking about all the time. And actually, I don't know if are you in on the website having a look?
Yeah, I was.
Well, actually, the fun thing that I'm actually out promoting at the moment, a novel that I wrote actually 30 years ago called The Adventures of Pebble Beach. If you go back in,
Okay.
you'll see on the very front page.
That's where I'm on the very front English page.
Yeah, on the very front English page. You see it says out now, The Adventures of Pebble Beach.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the fun thing about that is I've written all these books about the mind and consciousness, but 30 years ago, I actually wrote a novel and The Adventures of Pebble Beach, and at that time I wasn't so well known as I am now. I wasn't so famous, and so I sort of forgot about it and put it in the drawer and never showed it to anybody. But now that I'm becoming more well known around the world, people are also interested in this older book, which is actually a fiction version. It's a story of one woman's journey of self-discovery. So, and it just came out now, and the few people that have actually read it now are just loving it. It's a funny book. It's about a woman who just gets divorced, and she becomes a single mother with 2 kids, and she's getting new boyfriends, and it doesn't work out, and the whole thing. And then she starts to go to therapy, and all the trouble she gets into, and how she finally takes control of her life, and all the mischief she gets. And so it's another way of getting to know me in my books. If you really would like to read a novel, you could try that one. So that's actually what I'm also out doing at the moment, talking about The Adventures of Pebble Beach.
Well, this is going to sound like a strange question, but I'm just dying of curiosity because I'm looking at the book cover. I see you got the Pebble Beach, and there's 101 relationship myths with Tim Ray, and Are You Happy Now with Barbara Berger. But at the very top one on the Pebble Beach, on the book cover, it has a picture of a woman sitting there with her panties down. How did you come about selecting something like that, and does it relate to the novel in some way?
Well, it's a lot of people were sort of, shocked by when they saw the cover and the book, and gosh, Barbara, have you written something like that? And the truth of the matter is, it's a book about a real life situation, about the real life situations that we get into, the relationship problems we have, the sex problems we have. I mean, all the things that go into being a human being, and how do we deal with them more constructively? So it harmonizes perfectly with the other books. And I would say the one book of mine which it harmonizes the best with is Are You Happy Now? 10 Ways to Live a Happy Life, the book that we've been talking about. Because in this book, especially in chapter 3 in Are You Happy Now? That's the chapter which I call Be Honest with Yourself. That whole chapter is about getting to know who you really are. It's all about owning your own reality. It's all about you have a right to be you. It's all about learning to take better care of yourself, learning to find out what's important for you. And actually, The Adventures of Pebble Beach, this novel about this woman who's just divorced and a bit lost in life, and her quest is exactly that. So you could say both of these books, these basic issues which I see in people every day when they come to therapy, both of the books deal with it, but in different ways.
Well, does your son deal with any of a similar line of work as you do, might I ask?
My son?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's also a therapist.
I wonder because I noticed the title on his book was 101 Relationship Myths, so it kind of sounded like maybe he had the same track you did.
I think you'd really enjoy his book. What he has done, he has taken the things that I write about in the mental laws and the things I write about in Are You Happy Now and in The Awakening Human Being, the way the mind works and the difference between reality and our stories about what's going on. He has taken our stories about relationships and only looked at them, and that's this 101 relationship myths. He has taken, some of the major stories that people have that are sabotaging their happiness in relationships. So again, he has taken a specific area, but his book is also based on the same understanding, the way our minds work and how they affect our experiences.
Okay, so
I think
this here
101
myths is not necessarily married couples. It could be boyfriends, girlfriends, father, son, mother, daughter, etc., etc.
Well, it's not so much father, sons, or a mother's daughters, but it's definitely couple. It's based on couple relationships. I mean, whether you're married or not, or whether you're dating or not, or whether you're. But it's about our. It's a lot of. He questions and looks at a lot of our ideas about what it takes to have a happy relationship, and the fact that we have a lot of misunderstanding about in terms of who's responsible for who. I mean, I sit and hear people every single day talking about the problems in their relationships, and we have so much confusion in terms of our partners and who's responsible for what. So he really looks at that in this book. It's a great book. It's very funny, too. I think you'd really like it.
So ultimately, though, what you and him both teach is you're responsible for your own happiness, and each partner is responsible for their own selves, maybe?
That sounds a very good summary. In other words, and again, don't misunderstand. It's not that we shouldn't be decent human beings. It's not that we shouldn't treat each other with respect, and it's not that we shouldn't be loving and kind. We're not talking about anything like that, but we're talking about that ultimately no one can get inside of your head. No one can determine how you think and feel. It's impossible. If you look at the way the life is set up, each one of us is in our own heads. I'm not in your head. You're not in my head. And of course, the things that you do, I have my stories about them, and of course I would like you to treat me with respect, and you would like me to treat you with respect. But ultimately, I'm responsible for how I interpret whatever's going on in front of me, and you ultimately are the same. They're responsible for what's going on within you. But until we become aware of it, we have a tendency to point the finger outward and say, it's your fault that I feel bad. And
well, I think you're right, and I think there's a huge problem with that. I mean, in the world today, I think most people have a tendency to not be aware that their own perception is clouding their judgment, and it's so easy to point the finger at the other person because your actions is what's made me unhappy. Well, why couldn't your perceptions of my actions have been different?
Exactly.
And nobody ever, if you ask somebody that, they'd be like, well, where do you get off telling me that? Why should I? But these are really blocks to your own self, though, at the same time, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, just think about it. Again, what you just said was so profound. I mean, somebody does something. Let me give you another example so we get it really concrete. I just had a woman who came to me. She was like, I don't know, like 52. And she was, had a lot of energy, and she was she had a job, and she was thinking about, she wanted to start her own business, and she had this great idea, blah, blah, blah. So she was, really a sort of a feisty, fiery lady. Her husband was a bit older. I think he was like, 65 or something, and he had just retired. And he didn't want her to start this new business because he wanted her actually to quit her job and hang out with him and do stuff with him. And she didn't want to. And it was like, she came to me because it was like, he was saying to her, your decision is making me unhappy. If you don't quit your job and hang out with me, you're making my life miserable. And so we tried to look at this issue, and but that was his interpretation of her actions. He blamed her for making him unhappy, but if you really look at it, he could have said, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. Go for it. You have my full. I mean, there are many ways he could have reacted. So again, this kind of thing that we blame other people for the way we feel. First of all, it's giving our power away. That's another thing, And second of all, the truth of the matter is it's our interpretation that's making us unhappy, not really what the other person is doing. So it's very liberating. It's self-empowering to understand this.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stop and think about this, when a person says it's your fault, I'm not happy, the first thing he's doing is assigning you his responsibility for his happiness.
Right.
While at the same time, like you say, throwing away his power, because now you can steer his happiness. You through his happiness, you got the power over him. You enslave him.
Yeah.
Because he said, come enslave me, when he blamed you.
Right. Right.
So, to give away your power is to an effectiveness to say, hey, I want to be a slave.
Yeah.
I mean, that may sound a little harsh, but.
No, it doesn't sound harsh to me at all. In fact, it's a very good description of what's going on. And I like to say it like this. I say that when people start to understand this, it takes courage. It takes courage to take responsibility for how you feel yourself. And I think that taking responsibility and stop pointing the finger and blaming other people is a major step forward in personal evolution. I think that every person, my opinion is that when people come to me, for example, when they walk in the door and they want to go to therapy with me, I have so much respect for these people because they're coming in the door, and by coming in the door to talk to me, they're saying, I want to take responsibility for what's going on in my life. That's a major step forward for any human being, and it really takes courage. So when you stop pointing the finger of blame outward and you say, I'm going to take my power back, and you're going to be willing to look at, what's my role in all of this? What can I do in this situation? I mean, it takes courage, but it's also so liberating. So it's a really, really powerful thing to do. I recommend it highly.
But that's usually also at the same time you start taking control of your own destiny, too, instead of letting life buffet you around, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the same thing, of course. It's the same thing.
One of my favorite sayings is to take control of your destiny before life seals your fate.
Excellent, Royce. Excellent.
But, yeah, if you stop and think about it, if you don't, life really honestly will. And you can get buried under a mountain of depression. I mean, I've actually known people in my time that they get so depressed they want to end their own lives. So
yeah, it's very disempowering not to understand. So that's, again, the reason why I say understanding the mechanism of mind, understanding how your thinking is shaping and controlling your experience of life, that's the key to freedom. So, again, that's why go in and download the mental laws on the website and read about the way your mind works, because this is the key. When you understand that what you focus your attention on that is what you're going to experience. And when you understand that, that is a basic key for in other words, if you're in a situation, every situation that you're in, you have a choice of what you're going to focus on. Are you going to focus on, everything that's going wrong here, or are you going to focus on everything that's going right here? Are you going to focus on all the problems, or are you going to focus on all the opportunities? So, again, the situation doesn't change, but the way that we relate to it, that is what we have control over, and that's what determines our experience.
Yeah, and an interesting thing here is, and I'm pretty familiar with what you're teaching here, having spent time in management and marketing and advertising and sales. A lot of the people you'll hear when you work in those kind of fields, they say things to you about, taking responsibility for your own creations and, I'm okay, you're okay. People in the professional field, though, they're all about, making your life what you want your life to be and taking accountability for it. And I think this goes more so than it does in jobs like, say, a tarman or a bagger at a grocery store or something like that. At least it seemed to me, because I've done both kinds of work.
Well, I have too, and I think that actually, regardless of the situation, I mean, again, maybe being a bagger in the supermarket isn't the most fun thing you could imagine doing, but you can still choose how you're going to relate to the day that you're having. I mean, are you going to smile?
Oh, that's true. I did not mean to say that.
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to smile at the people? Are you going to have a little chat? Are you going to notice? Are you going to help? I mean, so actually, I always have a great conversation with one of the women up in the local supermarket here, and she's so sweet. And it's like, you can stand in line there and be irritated, or you can stand in line there and
you'd be sitting there, oh God, this checker never get through. I've heard people.
But I mean, you can also, I have one of my other good meditations is, we have this huge supermarket not very far from here where I live, and sometimes I just go in and I just think about the abundance of our lives, man. I mean, we have so much to be grateful for. There's just, I have to admit, I've traveled a lot. I've even been in places like Afghanistan. I mean, I've been places where people really...
Where people sure enough ain't happy.
Yeah, where people really, really don't have much in terms of the material stuff. Just that we live in such abundance, and that we overlook the blessings that are all around us every moment. I mean, again, talking about what you focus your attention on is what you experience. One of the most effective ways of living a happy life is to focus on the abundance that's in your experience right now, and that is a guaranteed way to make you happy now. I promise you.
And if you want to know how much abundance you have, simply turn your TV on and wait for a commercial about all these here kids in Africa that are starving that the church ministry's putting on, and you'll get an idea how abundant you are real quick.
Yeah.
But because most people are like, what abundance do I have? My house is falling apart, my yard is all high grass, and we need new carpet. They can go through all of that, and you'll never hear them say, but I got it better than these people over there that ain't even eating. So many people, they're so focused on themselves that they can't realize that, they can't see the forest for the trees, I guess you might say.
Yeah. Well, you could also say, one of the other things I like to say to people is, if you could stop comparing, you would also always be happy. I mean, one of the points in Are You Happy Now is, actually I think it's the second of the 10 ways, is want what you have. And that, I sort of make fun of things in that chapter, because it's like, we're always comparing, ourselves or our situations to other people, other circumstances, other events, only if I was thinner, or if I was younger, or if I was more beautiful, or if I had more money. I mean, if we couldn't compare, it would be impossible also to be unhappy. Just think about it. If you couldn't compare your situation to somebody else's, if you couldn't compare how you look to somebody else, if you couldn't, then you would be sort of in this, and then you would start to notice the amazing wonder of being you right here, right now. I mean, it's really that we're so lost in our thinking about what we think we should have, that we forget to notice what we actually do have.
Right. Well, you asked me, I think there's a little madness involved in what you're talking about there. I mean, if you take the rich man, you might hear him complaining about, oh, I got too many hours to work. At least the poor people don't have to work this many hours, and they can spend time with their wives and their family that I can't spend because I'm supporting them. Then you look at the middleman, and he's thinking, oh, I never have enough money. I'm barely making it payday to payday. If I had the money of the rich man, which the rich man would rather be in your shoes than you don't know it. And then you looking at the poor people in Africa, they're really wishing that they had it, better. Well, in all three classes, nobody is happy.
I know.
And that's the madness of it, if you ask me.
I totally agree. Well, actually, I mean, you haven't even read my book, but you pretty much, that's pretty much what I say in this book, that we get so lost in all the things that you just said, all of these crazy stories, all of our unrealistic expectations. We're so lost in the dream that we forget the beautiful reality that's right here in front of our noses. And we're so much caught up in thinking about the future, worrying about the future, or thinking about the past, regretting what we did or regretting what happened, that we miss this moment. Because, I mean, actually, if you ask yourself, what is preventing you from being happy right now? I mean, what is preventing you from being happy right now? If you really ask yourself that question, see what comes up.
Well, no, a lot of people would say, well, I'm unhappy because I just had a divorce, or I'm unhappy because I just had a flat tire, or my motor just blew. But then I guess what you're really trying to say here is, well, why does that make you unhappy?
And as also, why does that make you unhappy now? Don't forget, my book is not called Are You Happy? It's called Are You Happy Now? Because I think it's a very
keyed in on that several times now.
Yeah, exactly, because it's important to understand that there's only one place you can be happy, and that's now. And that everything else is really a mental construction. It's a thought in your mind. Tomorrow is a thought in your mind, and yesterday is a thought in your mind, and 5 minutes from now is a thought in your mind. So Are You Happy Now is really, again, to bring yourself back to the present moment. And if you actually look at the present moment right now, I mean, you, Royce, are sitting there breathing, talking into the phone. Me, Barbara, I'm sitting here in Copenhagen breathing, talking into the phone. What's wrong with this moment? The people who are listening to us, what's wrong with this moment? It's again, to simplify in a way and to come back to this moment. There's so much power and joy here, and in fact, this is the only place that you can experience it. Everything else, even the flat tire, not enough money in the bank, all of those things are still just stories. I know it's radical what I'm saying, but it's true if you really, 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 really look at it.
Well, no, and that's so radical to me anyway, because here about 4, 5, 6 years ago, I heard a sermon by a pastor on TV named Miles Monroe, and he was talking about the interesting thing about facts, because facts and truths are often very different, since truths can apply to the future and facts are usually in the present. A good example might be, I'm happy right now sitting here eating a steak and having a baked potato and a salad with it. 5 minutes from now the truth is, though, in 5 minutes from now, when I hit my thumb with a hammer while hanging a picture, I'm not going to be so happy. But you kind of get the idea what you're talking about. It kind of goes in with what you're saying is what I'm getting at. At least I think it does.
Well, it does, because, again, if you really look at what I'm trying to say and what you're saying, too, is that there's a difference between what we're actually experiencing right now and all our stories about everything else. I mean, again, it's the mental projections, you could say, the story about, how much money I have in the bank and how am I going to pay the rent and all that. Those are all stories about things which you may or may not have to deal with at some time. But actually, right now, this very moment, we're here and we're alive. That's about it.
Yeah, and another thing about it right here, right now, no matter how bad it is, it can be improved. You can change it tomorrow, the next day, or somewhere down the road. Nothing is permanent.
Yeah, but also even what you're saying, whatever it is right now, if it's bad, you can change it. It's also a question about what is it that's happening right now that's so bad. I mean, again, what is your interpretation about right now that's bugging you? That's also important to look at.
Yeah, that is an important question.
Yeah,
I mean, is this
really
something that really is bad, or is this something that's bad to you?
Yeah. So again, you still come back to how present are you? How much are you in this moment actually without, or if you could say it like this, without any story? Can you do it for 5 seconds? Can you just be present without interpreting everything all the time to yourself? You find out if you really look at it, and I have some exercises in this book where I try to sort of guide the reader into doing that what is it like if you're just present and you don't have a story right now? What would your experience be? And then it's like, it's very, very peaceful suddenly. I mean, it's quiet. You're not going anywhere. You notice that you're breathing, and that's about it. And what's wrong with that? So it's again, the difference between being present and aware and thinking about lots of stuff is a really big difference.
And a lot of people get gray hair thinking about a lot of stuff, and they get high blood pressure.
And that's not making you happy now, is it?
No. All righty. Well, I shall we come toward the end of an hour. Do you have any last-minute thoughts you'd like to share with everybody?
I'd just like to say again, go into the website, BeamTeam, BeamTeam.com, and then poke around and look around a bit and download the mental laws for free. And there's quite a lot of other material, articles, parts of the books, and there's a lot of stuff you can use to improve your life right now. So I'd really like to have people know that and share that with people. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, the email address is on the website too. Send me an email and I'll get back to you. And to you, Royce, I'd really like to say thank you for this opportunity of being on your show and chatting with you. It's been great fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you too. I think the show went really well. I do want to mention everybody out there, though, to make sure you come see me Wednesday. Georgia Love will be returning to talk about her book, Escape from Manhattan. And she shared with me on the phone the other day that there's some new things going on she wants to share with you listeners. So don't forget to come see me. And don't forget to catch me over at Revolution Radio the next day, this coming Thursday, for Carl O'Helby, who says you can beat lung cancer, and he says he actually did it. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you folks there. And don't forget, like I said, to visit Barbara Berger at beamteam.com, wasn't it, Barbara?
Yes, beamteam.com, yes.
Just making double sure of that. All righty. And
well,
in the
thank
meantime,
you so much. I send you my blessings. Keep up the good work.
Okay, you too now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And don't forget, folks, Talk Now Radio is now at www.talknowradio.net. I've decided to let the .com go over a period of time when it comes due. The truth of the matter is I wasn't able to really get into the DNS records over there where I bought the ISP, the IP or the domain name at, and change the IP for my mail servers and secure it properly. So I'm moving everything over to a new domain name register so that I can have better control. And rather than go down while I was waiting for all of this or not be able to use my mail server, I went ahead and got a .net domain name so I could keep going in the background. And I'm just going to point the old domain at this here site until the time comes for it to expire. And don't forget, every Thursday from 1 p.m. Central Time to 3 p.m., I'll be at Revolution Radio in Studio A. In the meantime, y'all have a good weekend, and I'll see y'all Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time.